Okay. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another Tuesday chat with OTRAM. Same format as usual. No plan. Just whatever questions you guys have, I'll try to answer them. Let's see. News at the shop. The 3FE swapped 40. Got test driven back together last week. And then the customer came and took it for the weekend to shake it down. And it's got a couple minor gremlins and some fit and finish to still tidy up, but it is for the most part done, which is awesome. We got that done. We got a bunch of knuckle jobs and an engine rebuild going on right now. We've got all the shelving coming tomorrow to finish setting up the new side, and I'm probably going to wire it over the long weekend. So I should have a shop tour update video coming soon. Now that the new side's getting close to completion, it's really messy right now because we took everything from the old side and kind of shoved it over to the new side until we figure out where it's all going to go, and we've just kind of been shuffling it around. So yeah, that's going on. I ordered front axles for the Shady 80 this morning, so I can finally, I've had the knuckle rebuild kit, but I didn't want to do the knuckle rebuild without having the burfs, because at 350,000 miles, it's going to need burf fields. So those are on the way, and once the front axle / wheel bearings are rebuilt, I'll actually be able to start driving the Shady 80 and shaking it down and seeing what's going on. So there is progress happening on the Shady 80. It's super slow, but it's happening. I'm hoping we don't lose internet's power, whatever, this evening. A big thunderstorm just started rolling through, but it's kind of bright outside, so I'm hoping it's rolling past. But yeah, just whatever questions you guys have. I think that's all the news I've got. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think there's anything else going on. Started modifying a set of soft top bows, the real steel ones for the factory soft top. Excuse me. They're vertical, and the later model doors kind of bow in at the top, so I cut and bent a set of those bows today. So I just got to do the body work on them tomorrow, and then start putting the top together. But yeah, that's it for new and exciting. Not going anywhere for the 4th of July. Just hanging around the house, but we're closed Thursday and Friday. So I can do some family time. Although Sunday I'll probably go in and do some wiring to final run the 220 over to the new side. We've got extension cords running over to do the AC and running the AC and the new lift. Let's see. AC only blows on low. Check the kick panel relay and it tested good. What should I check next? What year truck? Because that'll make a difference. And it's usually when they go funky, they only blow on high. 97. A 97, I'm not positive. Let me pull up the wiring real quick, because I don't remember if those have a resistor in them or not. Just a second, and I'll pull that up. Come on. What's going on, 646 Silver? If you just replace the resistor as well, that blows that theory out. Let me pull it up and see what all is in that system. Let's see. I've never actually dug through. I've never had to dig through the fan on one of those. And I'm not seeing. There it is. So it looks like there's a blower resistor, and then there's also a AC power transistor blower control, which is probably the other module that you're seeing behind the glove box. But I've never actually dug into them to I've never had to mess with it. And unfortunately, I can't show the screen with the diagram on it because it's copyrighted Toyota. Like, I'm on Toyota's factory information system, and they would not be happy if I put the wiring diagrams and the tech info out on the internet. But yeah, the only other thing I'm seeing in the system is the transistor, unless the actual, like the control module, like the everything but the low speed button is broken. But I would doubt that. Let's see. Cool. Yeah, let me know how it goes. I've never, man, it is storming out there. I've never had to dig into the fan on an 80 series. I'm actually going to have to on my truck because the fan just randomly turns on and off. Let me see if I can flip the camera around so you guys can see the storm. I don't know if you can see out there, but it is pouring. But yeah, I'll be interested to see what you find out, because it looks like whoever owned my truck before has had the whole like HVAC part out, like the control head, because it's all butchered up. So I'm interested to see what other people are finding, to see what I'm going to find. The part connected to the valve cover that connects the breather hose. I'm guessing you're talking about the PCV valve. That's the only fitting I can think of on the valve cover that pops off. And it'll be a grommet, and then the PCV valve, and then there's the PCV hose, and then the fatter breather hose next to it. And all of those are still available from Toyota and fairly reasonably priced. Yes, smash the like button. I'm trying to think. Yeah, luckily, like the whole HVAC control head comes out pretty easy, like with the radio and all that jazz. You just have to take the center panel apart. And the fan housing and all that jazz comes out pretty easy. You take the glove box off and the little brace that goes under the glove box, and that whole assembly comes out through like the glove box hole. It's only the heater and like the mode servos that are a pain to get to. Are you asking my preference between the 94 and older or the 95 plus dash? And if that's the case, I'm a fan of the 95 and up dash. I don't like the weird swoopy like awning thing on the earlier dash. Oh, gotcha. The guy that needs to remove it. I think he said up higher. Yeah, it's a 97, so it's the easier dash. Yeah, I much prefer the 95 and up as far as working on it as well. Although 100 series dash is way worse than either of those. And I just lost my monitor, so I think we lost power, so I'm probably out of internets.
Treadmill stopped.
Yes, the power went out.
In the back?
Everywhere. It just popped back on and off. So yeah, I've got no monitor, and I don't know if I'm still on. Because my camera and my microphone are lit up, but I can't see anything.
I know, it's so scary. What did your mom do?
Okay, so I guess we're still on. Yeah, I'm on a laptop, but the monitor is just plugged into the wall. But the router and the modem are on a battery backup in the other room. So yeah, I guess I'm still here. And I've got monitor back because the power just came back on. So we'll see how long that lasts. Except my camera's all screwy angled. There we go. You would be the PM I just got on Mud, but I didn't look at it. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, I am still hot mic. The lights on the mic and the camera were still on, and the laptop was still on, so I figured I was still going, but I wasn't sure. And Dave, you've got a good wife if she reminds you to come on for chat. That's what I was talking to my dad a little bit ago, and he was like, "Oh, are you doing chat tonight? I'll have to tune in." And it looks like our internet's kind of wonky because I'm very grainy on my end. Yeah, luckily I can't get to the bathroom to whiz from here while I'm still on the mic. Although I have done that with recording the actual how-to videos because I use a mic that goes, like, records in my pocket. And I've forgotten to take that off. And gotten some oddball things on audio. Dave, that's a really good question. I don't know. We haven't had anything new and exciting. I mean, I guess that's part of the problem with doing the same thing over and over is, we have the same work coming through. We haven't had anything new and exciting to come through to film. I've got to do a water pump on the Shady 80, so I'll probably do a video on that. And we've just about got the new side of the shop set up. So I'll probably do like a new walkthrough, like walkthrough shop update. And to Joe, I mean, I like the 55. They're old. They're harder to find parts for. I mean, they're good trucks. I mean, they're basically the same drivetrain as a similar generation of 40. And the fusible link on an 80, it goes like on the positive battery terminal, the eyelets bolt on the positive battery terminal, and then they go through that rubber grommet on like in your battery box, and then it snaps/bolts together onto the positive cable on the outside of that on the outside of your battery box. But it's the smaller wires that go through along with the big starter cable. How to check for leaks with the rear window side vents. The easiest way is to take all the interior trim off and have somebody shoot it with a hose. Or go through like a car wash, like, have somebody driving while you sit in the back with a flashlight and watch for leaks. Is the easiest way. We usually just use the hose trick. And, just kind of get everything soaking wet and, different angles. And, yeah, usually you'll find the leak. Yeah, see, I don't like doing body work or glass work or things like that, so I don't want to do how to find the leaks, because that would mean I'd have to do more like body style work. Yeah, we had a momentary power outage where I lost the monitor, but apparently everything else was still live. Hopefully the rain lets up in time to walk up to Molly's for trivia tonight. And to walk home from Molly's after trivia. I don't know why I'm so blurry. And am I still coming through on that end again? I just blanked out on my end. Like my monitor's still on, but it's not showing me anything. Like it looks like the chat froze. There is, to Chris, I'm assuming you're talking about a 1FZ. There is absolutely not a chance in hell you would ever get me to do valve stem seals on a 1FZ head still in the truck. The stem seals are a pain in the ass enough with the head sitting on a bench in front of you. It would absolutely be terrible to try to do it in the truck. Yeah, I would never, ever, ever recommend trying to do that. And to Alex, I've never had to mess with a fuel gauge on a 100 series. I would bet that you've probably got rodent damage, like something's chewed on the wiring above the gas tank and you're getting an intermittent short. But that's just the guess. And as far as the Shady 80, I ordered front axles for it this morning. I got a set of RCVs coming, so I can finally rebuild the front axle, get everything going, and start driving it to shake it down and see what else it needs. And we got a new batch of crank holders in a week or two ago, and I think I've got 4 left of that batch, maybe 5. Yeah, so I've got 4 or 5 left, and I need to place place another order soon. Yeah, the wiring that runs to our neighborhood, it can be like a strong breeze, and we start losing power and internet. It's awesome. It looks like I'm back at regular, or at least close to regular resolution now. An engine on a stand is the way easiest way to do the head and valve stem seals. Like normally we'll do a head gasket in the engine, but if it's one of those that needs like head gasket, rear main seal, and all that, we'll just pull the engine and do it on the stand. Yeah, we've had so many 80 engines out lately, I had to go buy an extra engine stand. Yeah, yeah, I can't imagine the way the stem seal and the retainers are down that hole, where the shim bucket sits. I can't imagine trying to do it in the truck. To Manuel, the ECU for 93 and a 96 are different, and so is the engine and the wiring harness. The earlier stuff is OBD1, and 95 and newer is OBD2, and they changed sensors and a lot of the stuff the way stuff works. So you'd have to do the engine, the ECU, the wiring harness, and probably the trans, because the trans on the 95, 97 is computer controlled off the same ECU. And to Dave, I'm assuming you're talking about the grease for the slip joints. The slip joints, I usually just put like a pump or two. If you put too much in, you run the risk of hydrolocking them and making the drive shaft jam. If you're talking about greasing the U joints, when you're greasing them, you'll hear them like make a crackling noise, kind of like bacon frying, and that's the grease coming through the seals, so you know it's all greased and good. And yeah, YouTube is is bringing a ton of work into the shop. We've been so swamped and backed up, which we're looking to get a third person once we get the new side all set up. Man, I can't imagine having 7 1FZs out in the shop right now. I think we've had 3 lately, and that's enough for me. And Deless, yeah, we leave the training and transfer case attached when we pull them. It's just easier to split, and you'll it's mostly cherry picker, but sometimes you'll do a little bit of finagling with like a jack under the transfer case just to get the angle and to lift things up to make it easier to get like past the front axle and stuff. So yeah, because you usually can't, with a cherry picker, you can't grab the engine back far enough to get the center of gravity right. So it likes to tilt backwards. So yeah, jack can be handy. It's part of the reason we switched to using a gantry crane, because we can choke the engine all the way at the back and get the center of gravity better for pulling it. And I have not seen the thread about fixing up a burned up truck. And yeah, when you're pulling the drivetrain, pulling it usually 2 people works. Putting them back in, a lot of times, when we were using the cherry picker, it would help to grab a couple guys next door just to push and shove and finagle things around. With the gantry crane, we can put them back in, just Crash and I. And with the gantry, he pulls them by himself, which is way nicer. And yeah, we've got a couple of the engine load balancers, but we've never had great luck with still getting them balanced. But it just may be the way we're pulling them. But yeah, they definitely are better than not having the balancers. Although with the gantry crane, now we just use nylon slings, and we sling them off the hooks, or the lifting hooks, and pull them out. Yeah, that's I guess that's a really good point. The T-case, all its weight being to one side, and the T-case twisting is what you really fight with the cherry picker. The whole drivetrain kind of wants to spin, and that's where it helps to have a couple of people when you're trying to guide everything back in, because you can kind of push and tilt and shove and get it back together. It's crazy, like, we've dropping, 1FZ drivetrains back in, a lot of times it would take an hour or 2, to get everything in and lined up and dropped into place. With the gantry crane, we've done 2 of them, and it's like 20 minutes to plop them back in. It makes it so much easier. Granted, it's a huge tool that most folks don't have the room for. But the first couple times we used it, Crash was like, I'm going home and I'm throwing my cherry picker away. If I have to pull a motor, I'm just going to bring it here and use the crane. Cool. Awesome. Have fun at the movies. Yeah, after chat, we're walking up to the local pub for trivia tonight, which will be fun. We haven't gone to trivia in quite a while. Have fun at Spider-Man. I didn't even know there was a new one out. Yeah, we've got two posts and a low rise 10K lift, and man, it makes it so much nicer. Um, and the gantry crane, and I lucked out on the gantry crane. I'd mentioned wanting one to a buddy of mine, and he was like, "Oh, if you can get it out of my barn, I've got one that's been in there for like 15 years that I've never used. Somebody gave it to him years ago." So I got my dad to go over with trailer, and it makes it so much nicer for moving stuff around, pulling engines, picking things up. It's one of those I would not have a shop without it. After using one, it's just that useful. And luckily, it's big enough that if we put the chains all the way to one side, you can park a truck under it, and it's kind of out of the way. Huh. Hints on breaking loose the tie rod ends. Um, lots of penetrating oil, heat, a really stout vise on a really stout workbench. We just actually ripped the vise off of one of our workbenches. We just ripped one of the vices off the workbench at the shop because we were trying to twist the tie rods loose. And we had one that just, no matter how much we heated it, no matter how much penetrating oil we used, no matter what we did, it would not come loose. So depending on where you are and how rusty they are, we've had a couple of times where we just had to get a new tie rod to put the new ends in because there was just no way, no how the old ends were coming out. And if they did come out, they were going to take the threads with them. But yeah, they can be so stuck. And like we always anti-seize them going back together just to try to keep them from sticking the next time around. But the vise that we just ripped off, it was bolted through a 1/4 inch bench top, through 2x4s, and then down to the down to the legs, and it ripped everything through. To test and see if it's bent, you could just put something straight, like a straight edge, or something like a long framing square, something like that up against it, and just do it in a couple of planes to see what's going on. um and a slight bend, not a huge deal, although it will affect your alignment. But big bends should be fairly obvious. I would not touch a Chinese MAF sensor on eBay with a 10-foot pole. For sensors, we use only Toyota, or like Denso, NTK, like the original Japanese manufacturers. The Chinese aftermarket stuff is just so hit and miss, and usually miss garbage, that I would run a used factory MAF sensor before I tried a Chinese sensor off eBay. And to Dave, I have never seen a cracked 80 series exhaust manifold. I've seen them rot the studs out, but I've never seen the manifold itself crack. Exactly. That's the stuff you put in when you're trying to sell it real quick and you know you're absolutely never going to see it again. Yeah, I would guess you're either leaking at the, like the manifold to head gasket, or more often it's the donut gaskets down to the Y pipe. Especially if if you've got aftermarket gaskets on the Y pipe. Like a lot of them look like they're nicer than Toyota, but they blow out really fast. We got burned on a couple of them, so we've gone back to just using the Toyota gaskets there. Even though the new downpipes come with gaskets, we just throw those in the trash and put Toyota ones in. But if you do end up having a crack in it, I've got some nickel bronze rod if you want to TIG braze it back. Cool. Yeah, the green ones. Pretty sure the green ones are the factory ones. I can't remember because one of them, like the 80 series and the 62, one of them's green and one of them's pink, and I can never remember which one's which. Oh, and you're right. What I've got is silicon bronze. I don't. Yeah, I was thinking the nickel copper brake line, but yeah, I've got silly bronze. I've also got a couple of grades of high nickel stainless filler wire. But on the cast iron manifolds, I'd probably use the silly bronze. I don't use it often, but I really like brazing, like TIG brazing with the silicon bronze. I've used it to patch up a couple of things and like not weld, but braze some dissimilar stuff together. It's fun to play with. I've yet to try to play with welding titanium. I think it's Tycon Industries, the guys that make the titanium pie cuts for exhaust. They sell like some practice kits, and it's like some little titanium samples, filler rod. That may be it. But it's like 40 or $50 for a practice kit. I've thought about buying one of those just to see how titanium welds. Not that I'm ever really going to have an application for doing anything out of titanium. Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that. I am shooting for coming to coal mine, but I'm still not a definite. It depends on how much I get done at the shop this weekend with setting up the new side, and yeah, how far along I get with everything. Because we've got a bunch of big jobs at the shop right now that I've been held up waiting on parts, and all of the parts for everything are showing up between now and Monday. So it's going to be a thrash fest at the shop, getting everything put back together. And sweet, yeah, Dave, if you remember to bring me some scraps. I'd like to play with them. I'll have to replace all my big gas lenses because I've cracked most of my Furic cups. Hey, cool. Thanks for tuning in, T25. We'll catch you next week. Cool. Yeah, you don't want dogs exploding in the house. That makes a mess. Mine are still freaked out from the storm that came through. They're both sitting under the desk right now. Well, one of them's under there. I don't know where the other one is. Trillian's under my feet. Atticus may be back with my wife because she got home early today, so he may be hiding with her. You want to be on the YouTubes? Come here. No, there's Atticus. What are you doing? You want to jump up here? I would not buy a Prius with a bad battery. A couple of years ago, you could get the Remand batteries reasonably priced and, get a dead battery Prius up and running pretty cheaply with a decent warranty and pretty well off. We dropped doing any of the hybrid work, I guess about a year ago. The Remand batteries just dropped into the garbage. And we replaced more batteries under warranty than we actually did installing original batteries. We had some cars that we did 2 or 3 replacements under warranty. It got insane. The batteries, we'd get a new replacement battery and it would last a month. Because, especially for the Gen 2 Priuses, when they remanufacture the battery packs, they're just using used cells, and they've got hundreds of battery packs, and they're taking all the good battery modules and matching them. But the tolerance between the modules is so tight that even if they match them from the factory, if the batteries didn't have these same wear characteristics, it's gonna trip the light for a bad battery again in short order. And all the Gen 2 Prius batteries, the newest ones, are 10 years old now. So the newest module you're getting in a Remand pack is 10 years old, and they're just not holding up. So a couple of years ago, I would have said, yeah, get a Prius with a bad battery. Just put a Remand pack in it. But I wouldn't do that now, unless you can stomach the cost for a new Toyota battery, which I think they're like $3,500. They're great cars, except when the battery goes out. Which my wife's Prius is coming up on $150K and 10 years old. So I'm a little bit worried about the battery life in it. So far, so good. But I'm not looking forward to the day when I've got to deal with the battery in it. Which luckily I've got the stuff to balance, to drain and recharge and balance the battery pack at the shop. So I'm at least a step ahead of the average guy on the street. Because we did hybrid repair for a couple of years alongside the Land Cruiser stuff. So we've got all the tooling for it. And to Dave, yeah, unless you're buying a new Toyota battery pack, the remands are just remanning Toyota Toyota cells. Like they're mixing and matching used cells. Like the Honda packs, they're putting new battery cells in those, because the Honda ones, it looks like a whole bunch of D batteries heat shrink together, like in a big stick. And they're getting new battery sticks from China and rebuilding the Honda packs. And yeah, I haven't looked into it in like a year, but when I last looked into it, nobody was making new Toyota battery modules. So they were just reusing the old ones and trying to sort out the dead ones. Well, it depends, because a Honda battery pack, like a Remand battery pack, last time I checked was like 2,700 to $3,000. So a Remand Honda pack was running about the same price as a new Toyota pack. And that's, towards the end of when we were doing the hybrid repair, we would get, estimate upon estimate upon estimate requests. But then, you'd tell people what a battery was going to cost, and they're like, that's more than my car's worth. And they would, trade the car or sell it or junk it. So yeah, we weren't ever doing that many replacements. We'd do like one a month, maybe two. But, at least on the Prius, so like my wife's car, it's gone 10 years. It's on the original brakes still. It's on the original brake pads, original tie rod ends, shocks, everything. It's gotten oil changes and tires. So if you, cancel that, like, the lack of regular repairs that you'd have to do against what a battery pack costs, like the battery pack is like a big hit, but it's a one-time hit, instead of, all the nickel and diming small stuff that goes wrong. But they are some expensive parts. It's like the 100 series when the brake master goes out, and it's like a $3,500 repair. All the new computery stuff is getting very, very expensive to fix. And I want to say, like, I think it's the Highlander hybrid. I looked up one of their batteries once, and I want to say that one was like $7,000. It was insane. Yeah, 400H, that's also going to be like a $7,000 battery pack, because I think it's the same pack as the Highlander. Yeah, they're getting really cheap because nobody wants to do the batteries in them. And like when we were doing the Priuses, 7 to 8 years and 150 to 175,000 miles was what we were seeing out of them. But the ones that were like really high mileage, like people commuting long distance in them, the batteries held up a lot better than people were like, short tripping them for 5-10 minutes to the grocery store. Like one of the local Toyota guys, Blue, he's got a first gen Prius, And I think it's got like 400,000 miles on it, and it's still got the factory battery in it. And like the taxi guys that are driving nonstop, get 500,000 miles out of a battery. Do I recommend putting Loctite on the FJ80 knuckle studs? So if we replace the studs, we'll put Loctite on them where they go into the knuckle. But I don't Loctite like the nuts and cone washers. Because if you Loctite them, it makes it not real easy to go back and check torque because the Loctite, locks it tight. So if you go back with a torque wrench to check torque later, like you should, the Loctite's either going to give you a false reading or you're going to break the Loctite loose checking the torque. So I don't Loctite the nut end, and I don't pull the studs out for the sole purpose of Loctiting them, like when we're doing a knuckle job. If they're in the knuckle and they're good and snug, we leave them alone. And we just, regularly check them, as trucks come through the shop. We'll double check knuckle stud torque. If we've got them up in the air doing like brakes or something. Excuse me, got the hiccups. But yeah, I see like Loctiting the knuckle studs, like the nuts, kind of the same as if you were to Loctite your lug nuts. Like, because you can't easily go back and check torque, or if you want to change the wheel, kind of thing. And I don't know, because the way those are stressed, I don't think that it's actually like vibration loosening the nut up. It's the steering arm and everything moving around. So I think you're better off just regularly checking the torque than you would be to like Loctite them. But that's just my opinion. I'm sure, other folks have other ways of dealing with it. But yeah, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to jump off of here a couple minutes early this evening, so we can get ready to head up to trivia. We got to eat dinner real quick before we get up. But yeah, thanks to everybody that tuned in. Thanks to everybody that subscribed to the channel. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. And if you really dig the videos and the chats and everything, check out the Patreon link down in the description below. The support's always appreciated. And we'll catch you next Tuesday, same time, same place. Thanks for tuning in.